Hey guys, Forknar here, or as a certain PokeTuber said, 4CNAR, and today I'm going to be doing something new to my channel, and instead of a deck profile for a Pokemon deck, I'll be talking about magic numbers in, well, not just Pokemon, but many card games. I will, however, mostly explain using Pokemon. So even if some cards rotate out of formats, the metagame changes, or they're not the same cards, like Vanguard or Pokemon, the core ideas I'm covering today can still be applied and learned from, no matter what cards do or don't exist. Also, bit of a side note, you may notice I am now going to be technically a PNG tuber. I just really wanted to add a bit more expression to my videos, and this is the way I can do that. Thank you for Charivari for their Pit Crew image maker, and if I've screwed that up, sorry. And go find them on Tumblr at Charivari and Instagram at charivari.art, and I'll leave their Pit Crew image maker linked in the description below. Thank you so much once again. But enough about that. We're here for one thing: card games. So why keep the masses waiting? I think the first point we should be looking at is, what are magic numbers? When talking about magic numbers, we typically imagine it to be the idea of using math and card advantage to make your game easier, while gathering enough power or resources to try and harm your opponent as much as possible. In most of the card games I've played, it's mainly focused on the attack power of certain cards, especially in Vanguard and Pokemon as of late. So, how do these magic numbers work? I think the best example I can find is with the game Cardfight Vanguard and the entire system it focuses on for damage and attacks. To sum it up quickly, you lose when you take 6 damage, and can optionally guard your opponent's attacks to deal you more damage, or take less damage, or whatever. Guarding uses the shield value on certain cards to add to your own card's power, and if you go over the attacker's power, you block it. I think you can see where magic numbers come into play. By pressing specific numbers, you can force your opponent to either waste multiple lower power shields or higher power shields they would want to keep against your stronger attacks. There are many strategies that can come from this basic idea, however. I will use the deck Varga Dragras as an example for these to work. In this example, Boulder Axe Dragon has 10,000 power, while the opponent's card has 8,000 power. However, I, as the player, can call a card behind Boulder Axe Dragon with 8,000 power as well. With the ability of boosting, Boulder Axe Dragon can attack for 18,000 power. Due to how guarding works, the opponent must guard with over 10,000 power. Most shield values, again, the amount of defense a card provides, are either 5,000 or 15,000 power, meaning the opponent must guard with 3 copies of 5,000 power shields, or use a valuable 15,000 power card. This isn't factoring in what is called a drive check, revealing the top card of the deck and adding power if specific trigger cards are found. But because the power is exactly 10,000 higher than the opponent's, they're forced into an awkward position of guarding users more resources than they would prefer. In the video I am showing you now, Varga Dragras, the main card, has a power of 13,000. The opponent is not up to their main card and remains on 10,000 power. While Varga can immediately attack, and can even use one of its skills to raise the power further to 23,000, the opponent can easily use a single 15,000 power shield card to guard it. However, the Varga player also has an Impale Horn Dragon behind it to boost, adding its power to Varga's attack. This takes the power of the Varga player to 21,000, and then the 31,000 through a skill. Impale Horn's skill can also raise to 33,000, but it won't change the maths yet. It can soon though. In this situation, the opponent must either use 2 of their valuable 15,000 shields, or drop a 15,000 shield and 2 5,000 shields, wasting valuable card advantage either way. Combine this with Varga's skill to attack again, and drive checks to randomly add more power, and even more possible resources can get wasted. That Impale Horn Dragon, though. What was the skill again? An extra 2,000 power. Why is that important? Because when the opponent rides their main card, and also goes up to 13,000 power, that extra 2,000 power raises Varga's attack back up to a nice X 3000. We start with 13,000 power, the Vanguard goes up to 23,000 power with a Persona Ride. Impale Horn boosts for 8,000 and adds 2,000 more, going to 33,000. And then finally, Varga adds power with its skill again, going to 43,000. Taking that 43,000 and minusing the opposing 13,000 power means the opponent must be guarding with an even 30,000 power. The two 15,000 shields won't be enough to guard it, because you have to go over the 30,000, and the opponent is forced to use another 15,000 or 5,000 power shield to block it. This is forcing your opponent to burn through their defenses faster, giving you a higher card advantage in the long run. Now, we've seen how Vanguard itself can use magic numbers, and the advantages sticking to specific numbers can do, and how specific attack powers disrupt the opponent's strategy. But we can also have a look at how the same thing applies to the Pokemon card game, if not a bit different, because Vanguard and Pokemon aren't the same, but the concept is the same. In the current TCG meta, currently in 2025 as of recording, one of the best examples of a card that struggles heavily to magic numbers can be Pheasantipity against Poison decks. For those who don't know, until rotation, we will have a deck focused on poisoning and using it to hit magic numbers quickly. Clorf Terapagos decks mainly do this. And it will exist after rotation, but we'll lose cards like Radiant Sneasler that make it a bit better. However, by hitting for high numbers now that are just shy of a KO, then taking the boosted poison damage, the deck can be knocking out Pokemon easily. Why is this important though? Why wouldn't you want to knock it out with an attack? I have an answer. Pheasantipity EX. A staple support Pokemon in decks at the moment, it can draw your opponent 3 cards if you knock out their Pokemon on your turn. However, by not hitting their Pokemon and knocking it out on your turn, focusing on using poison to knock it out in Pokemon Checkup, Flip the Script doesn't become active, denying them further access to the cards they're hoping to draw into. And it goes beyond just avoiding abilities. Magic numbers can also play a role in controlling the prize trade. And one of the best examples is Dragapult EX, because its attack allows you to push magic numbers onto the bench through Dragapult's attack. By placing 10 damage counters, or 10 damage and 1 damage counter, on a 210 HP Pokemon, you prepare the next attack from Dragapult to be a KO on that Pokemon. That's really helpful against Latias or Pheasantipity or any basic EX that has 210 HP or less. However, you can also do a similar thing with Radiant Alakazam to move damage counters. You can stall out the opponent by taking higher prize turns with multiple KOs by doing this. This means with Radiant Alakazam, you could take a KO on a Roaring Moon EX and a Baby Moon in 2 turns, creating a 3 prize turn that might disrupt their prize plan. This is done due to the fact that Roaring Moon EX has 230 HP, living on a single Dragapult attack. You then put 6 damage counters onto the bench, and on your next turn, Radiant Alakazam damage counters from Roaring Moon to the Baby Moon, and then attack with Dragapult. Speaking of disrupting the prize trade though, Dusclops is fantastic, and so is Dusknoir. But speaking about Dusclops, it's a great tool with Charizard, because when your opponent has just taken 2 prizes, you can use Dusclops to place 5 damage counters onto an opposing Dragapult, for example, boosting Charizard's EX attack to dealing 270 damage. And because of Dusclops putting damage on, that 50 extra damage from Dusclops is 320, Now, the weird part is, I actually did have the rest of the video. I have the script right here, including Dusknoir and Dragapult knocking out any 330 Stage 2 EX like Charizard, or using cards like that for Drifloon or Screamtail. And I also talked about how magic numbers don't purely rely on attack power, and again, mentioning Dusklops and Dusknoirs, you can use them to start putting cards like Roxanne active. But, I don't want to re-record all that, because it's a lot more than people think, and I actually have a different idea. I'm going to put all these cards onto screen, or list them out, and I want you to think, how can these prize cards, or how can these cards affect your prize cards, affect the magic numbers that you need? I mean, again, look at how Poison works. Look at how Dusknoir works. Roxanne. Unfair Stamp being barely avoided. All of that is really helpful when looking at magic numbers. So I'm going to let you all think about how that works, and I'm really just going to summarize it. Now that we understand magic numbers, I hope you can use it within your games to try and help push your gameplay even further. However, if I want to summarize it in one sentence, magic numbers use specified thresholds to cause as much resource denial and threat as possible, while keeping you at the advantage. Simple as that. Every deck has its own way of using magic numbers, whether it's through precise damage placement, forcing extra guards, or manipulating the prize trade. The key is recognizing how your deck does it best. Other than that, I hope you have a good day, night, afternoon, or evening, and I'll see you next time. Goodbye!